Please turn with me to the Gospel of Luke, chapter 15, verses 11 and 32, please. So let's just read those verses. So this is the parable of the lost or prodigal son. Jesus continued, "There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, 'Father, give me my share of the estate.' So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. When he came to his senses, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death? I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him what was going on. 'Your brother has come,' he replied, 'and your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound.' The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, 'Look, all these years I have been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours who has squandered your property with prostitutes comes home, you killed a fattened calf for him.' 'My son,' the father said, 'you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad, because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' May the reading of the word be fruitful for us." So, to begin with, I'd like to say that we've all made mistakes, right? Some public, some private, and all are painful. And many people I know, including my close friends, refuse to go to the churches these days just because of the fact that they think, oh, if I go back, I'll be convicted of my works, and if they knew what I've done, I can't be there, and I will be judged. And sadly, some of this is true when it comes to some churches where they're quick to judge and slow to embrace. But in Luke chapter 15, Jesus tells a story that reveals what God is really like. So in fact, when we read from these verses, we see a son demanding his inheritance early, which is quite shocking and disrespectful, because generally in Jewish culture, the inheritance is given when the father is about to die or is dead. He leaves and he squanders it all and ends up feeding pigs and eating their scraps to survive. Then when we see him prepare a speech, because he's like, there's no way I'm going to get back into my father's good graces, so I'm going to make this message for him and beg him to reinstate me as at least one of his servants. And we see him going back to the father. Now here's the interesting part. We read earlier, and I tried to emphasize that word when we got there in verse 20, that when the father saw him from afar off, he chose to run. And he ran to his son. Jesus uses the story to portray to us who God really is to us. A father who doesn't wait to shame, but runs to restore. This is a beautiful story, but it made me wonder, why did the father run? He could have just walked, or he could have waited for the son to get to him. Why did he run? And running, as we will get to again later on in Jewish culture, is pretty disrespectful for the patriarch because he has to lift his robes and show his feet as he runs, which is considered disrespectful. So to answer this question, let's first read Deuteronomy chapter 21, verses 18 to 21. If someone has a stubborn and rebellious son who does not obey his father and mother, and will not listen to them when they discipline him, his father and mother shall take hold of him and bring him to the elders at the gate of his town. They shall say to the elders, "This son of ours is stubborn and rebellious, and will not obey us. He is a glutton and a drunkard." Then all the men of his town are to stone him to death. You must purge the evil from among you. All Israel will hear of it and be afraid. This verse kind of brings to light the practices that Jewish culture had back then, especially one practice that is what led me to think of the sermon, that is called the kazaza, which was a practice where the townspeople, if there was a son like this who squandered his inheritance among the Gentiles, would meet the son at the gate, and they would smash clay pots at his feet as a symbol of how he destroyed his inheritance and how he is permanently cut off from his family and his people. And it was more often than not, it was final and very humiliating as well. And we see that the community would declare, if you look at the history of it, that you are cut off from your people. It was a public act of rejection as well. And Jesus' audience would have expected this kind of a reaction from the townspeople and from the father when it comes to the story. But this is where the story takes a turn, as we just saw. The son's return led to the father running to him instead of rejecting him. And no need to turn to this, but I will just quickly read from Psalm 51, verse 17. "A broken and contrite heart, O God, you will not despise." And that is, I think, the key part that this story portrays as well, where we see that the son knows what he's done and expects to be cut off and expects to be punished for what he's done and expects to be judged and not even welcomed at the very least. And he's not aiming for forgiveness. He's just aiming for survival at this point. He's trying to just ask his father and beg him to see if at least he could be a servant. He doesn't want to be accepted as a son or anything anymore, just at least the lowest servant. And he's prepared for a cold welcome, not a warm embrace. In fact, I would have believed that he was quite surprised when he saw his father running to him. Might have even thought his father was running to him to beat him up. But his guilt, we see here, speaks louder than his hope. And we have seen him falling so low and preparing to ask the lowest possible position in his father's household, because what he was doing before was even worse. So now we get to the father's response. And I like to call it grace with legs. "The Lord longs to be gracious to you. He rises to show you compassion." That's Isaiah chapter 30, verse 18. So we see earlier that showing your legs as a patriarch was considered very offensive, but here those very offensive legs are then becoming the way that grace was shown to the son. So we see in verse 20 of Luke chapter 15 that while he was still a long way off, the father was watching. The father was watching and waiting for his son's return. And the father runs, as I said, a shameful act for a patriarch. Running meant lifting his robe, exposing his legs, culturally undignified, and still he chose to run and put that shame on himself so that he could outpace the people of the town who were also going to meet him and get to the son at the town gate and hug him, so that then, if the father has accepted him, the townspeople can't just reject him any longer. And the townspeople have to accept the forgiveness that was given to him. This embrace is public, deliberate, and protective, an act of interception. So we also see after that the son is given a robe, a ring, sandals, and a fattened calf as well in celebration of this return. We see a complete restoration as a son, not a servant, even though he has done heinous things and he squandered his inheritance and he was no longer worthy of even being looked at in that town. And that's the parallel we see with what Jesus did for us on the cross in the story. where Jesus became the running father for us and took upon himself that punishment. We see in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2, again, no need to turn to there, I'll just read it. For the joy set before him, Jesus endured the cross, scorning its shame. We are the prodigal, sinful, lost, and undeserving sons. All of us were at some point in our lives away from the Lord, away from his presence, squandering the inheritance that we had, and we were sinning and becoming less and less worthy of being in the presence of God. And yet, we see that the Lord did not hate us for it. In fact, he chose to love us. And on the other side, we see the world, and often religion, still stands ready with that clay pot. And that is the key difference here. Jesus ran first, not to shame us, but to save us. The cross was his kazaza. He went further than the Father and took our punishment upon himself and was cut off so that we could be brought in. He bore our shame and rejection so we could be welcomed as sons and daughters. And that's what we are now, and that's why we come to worship God now. We see in Isaiah chapter 53, verses 5 to 6, that he was pierced for our transgressions. The punishment that brought us peace was upon him. How beautiful is that? That even when we squandered our inheritance and we sinned and we were going farther away from God knowingly, and we no way wanted to get back into his presence, the Lord still sent his only begotten Son to become that sacrifice for us on the cross so that he could bring us back. How beautiful is that? And what does this mean for us? So let's see in Romans chapter 5, verse 8. Again, I'll read from it. While we were still sinners, Christ died for us. That's one of the most beautiful verses in the Bible, in my opinion. That he didn't wait for us to fix ourselves. He didn't wait that, these people have sinned. Let's see if they'll do anything to get my forgiveness. Instead, he chose to come to us while we were sinners. That's something that we all have to remember. My dear brothers and sisters, what I'm trying to tell you is not that you have to fix yourself before coming here, but you are welcome to come as you are into God's presence. God's grace isn't delayed until you're cleaned up, but he runs towards you in your mess. And before you finish your apology, the robe is already on your shoulders and the ring is on your finger. No shame you carry is stronger than the grace that was displayed on the cross through his sacrificial death. No shame whatsoever. Nothing that you could have done could have been greater than the love that was shown on that cross. And I also have a challenge to all the churches out there as well. Are we running towards the sinner or are we shaming the sinner? Something to think about. If someone is caught in sin, we who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. That's Galatians chapter 6, verse 1. When the prodigal son walks towards us, do we respond like the father or the village? It's a very important distinction that the Lord made in there. And are we willing to look undignified to welcome the broken? We may not be willing to do that oftentimes, and it is something that we must change. I don't know about many of us, but at least some of us are like that. I was like that before. I'm still like that sometimes, and I am working on that myself, where I'm trying to reach more people that I wouldn't talk to before. And the same grace that runs to them ran to us, and that is something that we must remember as well. And just to close this message, I would like to say that before the pot could break, the Father broke into our heart, and that's something that we must remember. And let's remember the sacrifice that brought us here and the love that was shown to us, and let us welcome everybody else in that love as well. And anyone here who is willing to accept the Lord but is wondering and thinking that, you're not worthy of it, or you've done too much, or you're too far gone, that there is nothing that you can do, like I said, that will take you away from that grace. So choose Jesus today. Accept his love. Accept that sacrifice that he became for you. And accept that, and you will be in God's presence, and you will be in that love, and you will feel that, and that your life will be changed after that. If you're wondering if you'll continue to sin after, and that's what's keeping you as well, the Lord will change your life after you accept him. You don't have to fix before and then accept the Lord. The Lord will fix after you accept him. So please, I exhort you to accept the Lord if you are feeling like, if this is what is keeping you from accepting him. With that, I'd like to close this message. May the Lord's name be glorified.